Hey, good evening, everybody. This is Vera Sadler with VLS Coaching, and we're here again for another Tuesday Talk Live. And since I am not going to be the host tonight, I am going to turn it over to my wonderful host who's here tonight to ask the questions and kick it off to Ray Miller. So I'm going to turn it over to Ray Miller tonight.
Well, thank you, madam. And as many of you may know, yes, this is my mother, but we thought that it would be a good opportunity for us to actually hear from, the owner of so many nonprofits and VLS coaching to kind of interview her and see how things have been going with her and just pick her brain apart a little bit. So, um, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. So, I am going to kick it off by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So, for those who don't know me, who have never been on the show or have watched some of my episodes, my name is Vera Sadler. I love to tell people not only am I a wife, I'm a mother, but I am an extremely proud grandmother. I have been ministering, yes, and my daughter is smiling because my grandbabies are my heart and soul. Often tell my children, I've raised you, I've done my part, but my grandbabies are my heart and soul. Love them to pieces. But I have been in ministry for over 30, I want to say, well, I'm dating myself, but I've been in ministry for over 35, 38 years as a minister. I started out as a licensed, as a minister, then an evangelist. Evangelism is very dear to my heart. Um, the reason I have the title of pastor is because my husband and I used to pastor a church in Newburgh, New York, which is one of the roughest, toughest crime areas in the state of New York. It's in upstate New York. And then that's where I birthed one of the nonprofits I have, which is the mother organization to VLS Coaching. It is Women of Life Ministries. So
Mhm.
birthed my women's ministry. I was raised up under very strong female leadership and my pastor, my spiritual father, and my spiritual mother. But I learned the importance of ministering with excellence. So that's how I watched them do it. And that's how I learned how to do ministry. But again, mother, grandmother, business owner, leader, try to be a leader in the community and just a leader in my home and in the community.
Well, thank you for that little bit of information. Just highlighting yourself. I do appreciate that because oftentimes I feel like you get on here and a lot of people don't know the background or even a little bit about you. And so thank you for sharing that. Um,
Before you go
I,
on, I forgot to say that I am an author, a published author.
you are.
I wrote my book, and then I've also written two other books, and in the process of writing several more. So I apologize for interrupting, but I did want to drop that in.
No, you are more than fine. And I'm going to hop off really quick just to put a little tag in here. And so this is one of her books. And so go on and go look it up on Amazon. Go ahead and get the Memoirs of a Survivor. It is a truly impactful book. It basically, details parts of her life. And it is good for anybody who has survived any kind of grief, trauma, things like that. So just a little plug in there for you, Mom.
Thank you.
um, so just thinking about next. I hear you say that, you've been in ministry over 35 years, 38 years, and how you kind of were called. And so at what age do you feel like you were really called into full on ministry doing what you do? Because you do help a lot of people. And yes, when you were younger, you get into it and you get saved, but the passion that you have, at what age did you realize that?
Well, it's kind of a funny story about how I started ministering to people and felt like I was called. I remember having a conversation with your aunt one day, and this was years ago. We were living in Colorado and we were on the phone talking, and I was asking her, we were just talking about things, and I was talking about her, telling her my heart for people and for doing certain things. And she said to me one day on the phone, I will never forget this. She said, "Are you sure you're not called? God hasn't called you to be evangelist?" And I said, "Girl, heck no, God didn't call me to that." But lo and behold, that was the passion that the Lord had given me. And I remember it probably was not even 6 months after that. I was praying, and because I've always been this one that people can tell you a lot of things,
Hmm.
but your calling must come from the Lord.
Right.
People can say, "Oh, girl, you're good at this, and you should do this, sir. You should be doing this." But I'm really huge on you must hear your calling from the Lord, because if you don't hear it from the Lord, when somebody else can come and say you're not called, and you'll get shaken and you'll get moved, and then you won't know what you're supposed to do. So I remember about 6 months later, I was on my knees in the house and I was praying, and I was really asking God, God, please show me what it is that you want for me to do. He said, I've allowed you to suffer. And people might say, really suffer? No, God allowed me to go through some things. He says,
Hmm.
so that you can teach others to stand. And daughter, you were a little itty bitty baby. You were an infant. And when he called and he told me that, I probably couldn't have been no more than 24 years old.
Okay.
No more than 24 years old. And the Lord said, I've allowed you to go through these things so that when you see others, you can teach them to stand. So my passion began then to teach others. God is great. And I've been on that mission since.
Okay. And, just listening to you say you were 24 years old and really hearing what he said, for those out here who are maybe struggling to hear God's voice, can you kind of explain what that intimate moment is like? And for people, because sometimes people question, am I really hearing God? Like, is this his voice? Is this just my internal, like me thinking? What is that moment of intimacy like, do you think?
Well, for me, and I've had those moments. I've had a lot of those moments. So I've been saved for a very long time. I got saved when I was 21,
Okay.
and I'll date myself. Gray hair sometimes thing, but I know young people have gray hair. You got a few. I know
Thank
young
you.
people have gray
Thank
hair,
you.
but I'm 59 years old. But I remember in my early 20s, early 30s, I didn't always know if I was hearing it, but I had
Mhm.
a powerful spiritual mother. Shout out to Lady Julia Wilson Smith, Pastor Julia Wilson Smith. She told me everything that you believe that you hear,
Mhm.
line it up with the word of God. She said, because the enemy may tell you something, but he's never going to tell you something that's for your good or that lines up with scripture. So as I began, even now, I still will line it up with the word of God. Will this please God? And I remember one time I wanted to do something. I said, oh God, I was praying about something. I won't tell
Mhm.
everybody what it was, but this is when I was in Germany, living abroad, going through a situation. And I was praying vehemently, like really hard. And I was praying and I said, Lord, this is your answer. So I laid down and I thought, rest. And the Lord said, but does my word say that? And he reminded me that the enemy comes like a wolf to the sheep. And immediately I repented. I said, no, that doesn't line up with your word, God. That's
Wow.
me wanting release, because sometimes we think we'll hear God because we want release from a situation. We want relief. We want to answer. And the Lord showed me how to come to him, talk to him, and wait, and really just, so that's what I do, Desiree. I really spend a lot of time, or I'll wait, because sometimes that first answer you get is not always the immediate answer, but I try to wait and say, God, can I line this up with scripture? Because the scripture is our final authoritative answer.
Okay. And taking a spin off of that, hearing you say that the scripture is the final answer and listening to you talk about what you've been passionate about and your calling. I'm going to move into your nonprofits because I feel like those were developed out of your calling. And I'm going to go back. Some of you guys don't know, you see the VLS coaching, the Women of Life, but I want to go all the way back to Project Rare. And I say that because I grew up watching you. I know you talk about the old church that we used to go to, but I grew up watching you as an evangelist and go out on the streets and go to the homeless shelters and things like that. And then you launched Project Rare. So can you kind of give us a little bit of backstory on Project Rare and then how you transitioned into Women of Life and VLS coaching and all of these services that you provide and just helping people?
Well, that's really a good thing, because it did start out from ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say this before I go into how I launch. And you just said something that was really key. You grew up watching. So you knew, I want to say that parents, grandparents, fathers, mothers, whoever, I feel like that's so key, even in this last day,
Mhm.
that we are an example, that we can leave a legacy, that our children, our grandchildren, and all those connected to us can see what we're doing. They can trace. So by you saying that, you can trace some of my steps, and you can say, well, if I don't know anything else, I know this is what my mom did. And
Right.
so this story goes all the way back to when I first started evangelism in the church. I was over the whole evangelism ministry, and we used to do things. And one of the things that used to break my heart is we used to go out. We used to do feedings for the hungry. We used
Mhm.
to do, some little, what we called our little pop-up soup kitchens. We used to bring them in. We used to feed them. We used to hand out sandwiches. We used to do that.
Mhm.
And but I used to see people, the same people all the time. Same people we're ministering to. Same people we're trying to give resources to, direct them to other places to get resources. And I remember one day I was driving to church, I think, or from an event, and I said, Lord, I see the same people. What has to be different? And he clearly spoke to me. You can provide people relief. So Project Rare, relief answers
Mhm.
restoration. Relief, Project Rare stands for relief answers restoration and education. He
Mhm.
said you can provide them relief, but if you don't give them the answers and you don't restore them to community, they will not be educated to sustain themselves for life. And from there, it birthed Project Rare. And I literally went home and wrote the entire program description. I still had the first one and updated versions, but I wrote the entire program description in 30 minutes. That's how I knew it was from the Lord. And he laid it out to me so clearly what I was supposed to do. And in that, back then, we had an organization called the Metro Denver Black Chamber of Commerce. And that's when I got my first grant. I
Mhm.
worked with it. We a lot of us organizations in our we collaborated, and we came together, and we were sub awardees, and we were allowed to get receive funds to minister. And it wasn't really just to minister, because, and I want people to realize, you can minister without saying Jesus to people. When you
Mhm.
show people according to word the love of God by providing a helping hand, and at that time God just laid the whole plan out, Ray. He showed me where to go get computers for the organization. I was able to get an office space with, and I worked full time, because at that time I worked for Morgan Stanley Dean Witter full time during the day, but I did Tuesday nights, Thursday nights, and Saturday. Clients would come in, but people were homeless, but not because they wanted to be, but because one time they didn't have a place to apply for jobs. People, those of us, listen, I'm dating myself. We used to have to fax off our resumes. People used to mail you back things. People didn't have addresses. So
Mhm.
my business address served as a fax, a mail, a stop. And we were charged. We received bus passes for people. We received money to get them work boots, work tools, and work supplies. And we saw lives change. Yourself, my sister Diane, my spiritual sister, Pastor Shanika Thompson. Now she's Pastor Shanika Thompson. We all worked together to provide resources. It wasn't just me, but we all came together. You guys provided administrative support for me, but we came together and we provided support, and we were able to see people's lives change. We were able to see individuals get jobs in the community.
Mhm.
So when you see that happen, it continues to fuel the passion that God has already said, I'm pleased with what you're doing. And it's just like adding fuel, and you just keep going, you just keep going.
So, what I want to point out and what you said, and um, what Project Rare really, means the relief answers restoration and education. And I've heard you say this a lot, but just highlighting it again. Um, I don't think people realize when you want to minister to somebody, if they are homeless or in that state of mind and they haven't eaten for 3 days. I remember us going out on the streets one time handing out sandwiches. If they haven't eaten, how do you reach that person and want to minister to them? You're not meeting their physical need.
Mhm.
And so providing that initial relief of, oh, great, I finally have a sandwich in my belly. Like I can actually hear you now because I don't hear the grumbling from my stomach. Um,
Yes.
Providing
Yes.
those immediate needs of relief. Um, you don't really realize how far it goes, but it stretches a long way. And I think that, even the recipients of those things, the people who you helped, it's like, you're not just coming at me with Jesus. It's like you're coming at me as a human. I want to know more, but I can't get past this physical part right now. And so I think a lot of people sometimes when they're out ministering miss that. And I will say I appreciate that you have always taught us that. Like you can't just go, Jesus is important, but Jesus was also an action person. He helped do those things before he could even minister. You have to
He fed
get
the
to
5,000.
right, you have to meet the person where they are. And so that has kind of always been the example. And so just thinking about Project Rare, really like where you started and now to kind of see where you've gone with the Women of Life, which I want you to talk about next, and then leading into VLS coaching. But um, to think about that organization, even growing up, and how you provided help with resumes. And again, it's the basic needs that people you don't often think about. Sometimes the church misses because it's like I so want to talk to you about Jesus, and yes, Jesus is definitely important, but sometimes people can't hear those things because it's like I'm suffering in this area. Does God really hear me? And it's like, okay, let's help get you to this certain point. Come to church with us, and you'll realize that, yes, God is even working through us to help you, provide these needs that we're helping you with. So, I appreciate that growing up and watching that.
And
I probably don't tell you often enough, but just thinking about all that you have done as I grew up and the things that I've watched. Again, I remember going out on the streets with you, going to the battered women's shelters and things like that. I know I don't remember much, but I do remember those things.
those were great Saturday mornings because we would go in and we would cook instead of the women at the facility having to, they would have a Saturday off and they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to get up and cook and clean. And we would go in and provide the meal and serve them, and they would have breakfast. And then they were, like you said, they were open. And I want to respond to something you just said. It's not just giving them, but we are giving them Jesus. We're showing them Jesus in the most amazing
Mm-hmm.
way that we can, because it's not so many times we're going to say Jesus, 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 oh, this. But if
Mm-hmm.
we can't show people through the life we give, through the service we provide, that this is the love of God, again, like you said, they're not hearing it. They're saying, oh, the church is talking a good game. Those people at the church say that. And that's another thing. Shout out to the Oaks Church. I
I was going to
appreciate
say
the
that, yeah.
fellowship we belong to. Shout out to Pastor Kara and Chris Rayleigh and the Wilsons and the work that the Oaks Church does. I know you're in the,
Community.
but they are so big on community and so
Mm-hmm.
big on loving on people in a community. And some people think that sometimes when you love people hard like that and you show them the love, that you're sweeping over their sin. And I know, you know me,
Mm-hmm.
you're my child, you know me, I don't cover sin, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm hard about get your life together, but I think you can't come to somebody and say you're a sinner and you need to get right. You need,
Mm-hmm.
you people's somebody I know now says to me, you have such a calm spirit.
Sorry.
She's laughing, she's like, really, my mom? but
Okay.
but it's because I try to show the love of God more than just say, God, 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 you need to. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's so important. Community, showing people what and who God is goes. And I remember we as a church, I was talking about us being in Newburgh. We were a starter church. It was maybe 10 of us on
Mm-hmm.
most days. At some days, it may be 20. But I remember we hosted an event, and you'll probably remember this. We hosted an event on the platform
Mm-hmm.
outside the building.
The burgers and
The
hot dogs.
burgers, the hot dogs, the chips,
Mm-hmm.
the little drinks, and we had music. We brought music out there and everything. And I never forget, a gentleman came up to me. He said, Miss Vera, can I have another hot dog? I haven't eaten in 2 days. And even when I talk about it now, I still get overwhelmed because I told him, I said, eat as much as you want. And I had to go around the corner to the side of the building to
Mm-hmm.
control my tears. because we take, again, like you said, for granted what a little act of service means to a person's life, but we're extending the hand of Jesus.
It's an action.
Hmm.
Jesus is an action word,
Yes.
you know. It's not just go inside the church. Um, it really is, as we are taught at those, it's community.
Mhm.
Because without the community, I mean, you don't have a church. And so
Yes.
just thinking about that, um, again, it makes me reflect on a lot. And I do remember that plaza, you know, moment that we had. And I remember going out on the street handing out brown bags, sacks, and it really does touch people's lives. And so, I mean, I appreciate what you've taught us growing up, um, you know, and thinking about not only because I feel like Project Grow was a stem of that in Newburgh, but now kind of shifting because Women of Life was born up there.
Mhm.
Like, can you tell us a little bit about that and what that means to you? And um, just thinking about Women of Life, what you want people to get out of it. Because, yes, it's called Women of Life, but I've seen also men attend some of your conferences and how much they gain out of that as well. So I don't want to just label it as a women's organization, but just give us a little bit about that.
Sure. And Women of Life, again, was birthed when my husband and I was pastoring in New York, and I began to minister to the women. But I think the women's ministry was birthed in me long before that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was ministering with my pastor in Colorado, and she really taught me about ministry. But I remember when I was about, and I know some people say, well, when you asked me earlier, when did I know that I was called? So
Mm-hmm.
when I knew that I was called to women's ministry, it's so comical. The Lord told me when I was about 24. And the reason why I'm saying this, I did an interview with a guest, and he said, I think it was just last week, and he said, you need to have those stones of remembrance.
Hmm.
So as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about those stones of remembrance in my life. I'm marking those times when the Lord called me. So I remember when the Lord said to me, I was 24 years old. I know exactly how old I was. He said he wanted me to speak, to teach women. He said, I called you to women. And he gave me this age group. And I said, Lord, you give me this wide group. He says 17 to 45. That's when I was 24. They're way older than me. What are you
Mm-hmm.
telling me, Lord? And at that time, I felt like I wasn't in position. I was learning and I was growing and I was absorbing from my spiritual mother. And so then when we launched the church, I took what was the qualities I felt like I had to offer. I really wanted to see. Women in Life stands for leadership, integrity, faithfulness, and excellence. Because everything we do for God, we do in excellence. I'm
Mm-hmm.
huge on integrity. Our integrity
Means everything.
mean everything.
Mm-hmm.
I own up my faults. She's here. She'll tell you when I do something wrong. I say, look, I'm sorry, I messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But our integrity means everything. And then we need to be leaders. And I don't mean leaders where you usurp authority over the head of the house, your husband, but leaders. I'm a natural leader. I'm a natural born
Mm-hmm.
leader. So that's my lead, that's my job. That's what I do. I'm a manager. But leaders in the areas that God has called you to, you need to lead. So leaders and faithful. God is faithful to us. So God
Mm-hmm.
planted that in my spirit, and I just began to run with it. So, what do I want people to get out of when they attend? Male, female, that one, to be faithful to God, and that everything you do for God has to be with excellence. And then trust God with your whole heart, walk in your truth, walk in your truth. And what's the truth? What is your truth? He is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm teaching about in the Women of Life, whether it's men, women, or whatever platform I teach on, the basis and the foundation is one. Your truth has to come from knowing who you are in God, so that you can be faithful to Him, so that you can be excellent in your walk with Him, and then you can lead others. So that's really trying to sum it up. But every time I do a conference, That is what I try to promote and try to get people to see. This is about growing in God, knowing God, but having an identity and purpose in Him so that you can live an excellent, faithful life full of integrity and then lead others to Him.
Okay. Thank you for giving us, a little bit about that. And then I will go ahead and ask you now to tell us a little bit about VLS coaching. And I'm asking these in this sequential order for a reason. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about VLS coaching.
Okay. And so I know VLS coaching was launched probably a year and a half ago, the official name of it. But when I think back, I've been coaching for over 25 years. I
Mm-hmm.
started coaching when I was doing Project Rare. I was a coach. I was a life coach then for transformation of life. So I don't want people to think I'm new to the coaching because I'm not, but I
Mm-hmm.
officially formed the coaching business then because um, the lift, launch, and lead. Um, again, I try to do everything on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I try to do everything with a purpose. I know people say, "Oh, but coaching, everybody wants to be a coach." But I say, God, what have you called me to do? And my gift and my talent, an evangelist. I am an evangelist. I love to preach, girl. I love to preach. My gift is really teaching, and through teaching, mentoring, coaching, um, I said, Lord, how can I do that? What is so again, I go to God in prayer. Ray, I go to God in prayer about everything. And as I was looking at this, the VLS, it was, my initials, whatever. But the real meat of it is this, and I will put this across the screen so people can see it. It's the lift, launch, and lead. And it's pursuing your personal and your professional goals, but personal can be your spiritual, whatever. But it's
Mm-hmm.
the launch and lead piece of it. And again, through going to God in prayer and saying, okay, if you gifted me, you've called me, and you want me to do this, what influence and impact are you saying for me to make in the earth at this time? Because we go through seasons.
We do. Mm-hmm.
Go through seasons. And when I was 20, I was 24, I wasn't ready to do Women of Life. But when I was 40, I was doing Women of Life. I launched it. Now I'm older and I'm doing this in this capacity. And probably when I was 20, I couldn't do VLS coaching to the capacity that I'm doing now. I was doing it bits and pieces here, but I couldn't do it at the capacity to do it. And when I sat down and I looked that up, I thought about this and I prayed and I meditated on it. And I waited a while before I really came up with the program of it. I laid it out. I did some training and everybody kept saying, come up with this. And it took me a while. But as I was sitting there, God says, I want you to lift others up. People are stuck. They're stagnant. Again, goes back to the identity because they need to know who they are in me. So lift them up, encourage them,
Mm-hmm.
teach them, and then help them to launch purpose. So once you get them from being unstuck, stagnant in the mud, because I didn't call people to be stuck. I've given people to walk in purpose and destiny. Launch them, help them to launch to where I've called them, because people are living a life and they have too many destiny killers around them. Man,
Mm-hmm.
just show me these things. So lift them up, launch them out, and then teach them how to lead others in the same way. And that's how I came up with VLS, the Lift, Launch, and Lead program. And I'm so excited about it all the time when I talk to people with the program, because it really helps people propel. If you walk through the steps, it's about reframing your mind, transforming your life
Mm-hmm.
so that you can walk in a destiny. Because we don't have to be, and it's not about being here, it's about being where you're supposed to be. And sometimes we just need a little help.
We definitely do. And I don't want people to think, coaching is the same as mentoring.
It's not.
Because it's definitely not. So, coaching really makes you ask yourself. Your coach helps you identify and think of things and come to the answer and some of the conclusions through helping you. So thank you for sharing about that. And so when I'm listening to you talk about Project Rare, Women of Life, um, and VLS coaching, I feel like they are all similar in some way, but can you just give me your overall vision for your nonprofits? Because what does your vision look like? What is your mission? Like, Where do you want to see this go over the next couple of years?
Well, my overall vision, mission, and purpose, in which I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, is God has called me to influence and impact lives in the way that when I meet someone, they're not to be the same. So I am a change maker.
Okay.
And so I am to influence an individual for change for the better. So where do I want to see myself? I want to see myself in such a way, and I'm not talking about where I have to be. My name has to be in lights, where I have to be on a big stage. Hey, I'd love to be on a stage, get paid to be on a big stage. We all like money. Let's not lie to ourselves. We like money, and we want to be there. But I want to make such an impact and influence in the earth and in the lives of individuals that people say, "I know who I am." That's my mission, that I don't want anyone, especially young girls, young women. When I was a young
Hmm.
girl, I suffered. And this is why women's ministry is so important to me. I suffered with low self esteem. Thought I was the ugly duckling. So it's five girls in my family, three boys, siblings. I always thought I was the ugliest duckling of the family. I was the skinniest one, the littlest one, you know. So I suffered. And I don't want, and because when you have those issues, you trauma different things. I have some other traumas. Get the book, read the book. You'll
Hmm.
understand some things I've gone through. But when you suffer through some of those things, you don't always make the best decisions.
True.
And because of that, I want to help people walk through some better decisions, and
Okay.
how coaching you can talk and you can ask people, okay, so where is that going to lead you? And if
Hmm.
you do this, where it's like coaching, like you said, helps people get unstuck, make better decisions, see their way through a path. And I believe my mission is to help people see their way through a path that they can live out their best life ever. If I can do that spiritually, professionally, personally, like what path, what trajectory are we on?
Right.
So,
So it's very interesting listening to you say these things. And with launching all of these, between Project Rare, Women of Life, VLS coaching, it doesn't come without challenges, I'm going to say.
yeah.
So I would say, when thinking about what you endured to launch these, different organizations, what type of fear did you experience? Did you have doubt? And what type of adversity did you face? I mean, I know some of the things that I feel like I've seen, but what do you feel like you felt in trying to get these businesses started?
Well, when you first do it, I think, I don't know if anybody else thinks like this, but you start saying to yourself, okay, God, I know you said it, but I need surety. You want to put out that fleece like Gideon did. If it's wet here, I'll go, but if it's dry here, but then you mature and you don't do that anymore. You say, God, you said it. So the adversity, one, you have to take control of your thoughts that want to run rampant, because
Hmm.
I know my thoughts and the fear, and I had to really control my thoughts. I had to tell myself, I can't worry about what other people think, because a lot of times we worry about what other people think about what we're going to do, what we're, oh, you're launching that women's ministry, or you're doing this, and so and so has this going on here. You sure you're supposed to be doing that too? So those things, you have to silence the voices. You have to silence those and then some of the adversity is just getting it together. I'm a very detailed, organized person, and if I can't see all the details,
Hmm.
that bothers me, because I want to see the whole thing. And sometimes it's just pure faith. Just go with it. Just recently, um, even with the coaching, the Lord kept telling me, just push, just push. And I remember one day praying, I said, Lord, this just happened this summer. I think it was in July, maybe the end of June. It was the end of June. And I said, Lord, I really need you to show me a sign that I am doing just what you called me to do, that I'm in the place where you want me. Wasn't a week later, I got a phone call. Because sometimes while you're waiting, and you see some of the adversities, it's capital for the business starting out. Because when you start out business, it's the capital. It's getting people, everybody's happy for you sometime. Everybody will tell you, I'm happy for you. But we have to shift our thinking again of your friends and your family are not your clients.
True. Mm-hmm.
So then it's how do I get myself to go after that? So it's a lot of changing and reframing your thoughts and the way you do it. And it was with all of it, how to go after it, how to take care of yourself, because you're teaching people things. So you definitely got to practice everything you're teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of self-discipline, some of the adversities. And I want to go back to the capital. And this really, I found this a lot with the women's ministry. So, and it's kind of with the coaching too. Everybody wants a good product, right? When I
Right.
go to the store, when I go out to eat, when I go shopping, I don't want anything that's shabby. I want to be service right. I
Mm-hmm.
want 5 star. Even if I go to a hotel, I want 5 star service, even if it's not a 5 star hotel. I, that's why I like cruising, because I like to be treated well. So we want that, but we don't want to pay for it. So with the ministry, and you've helped me with, I know you've been busy these past 2 years or this past year, but my daughter has helped me with a lot of my ministry efforts. People want to come to a conference and they want it to be, man, top notch. They want you to give them giveaways. They want the meal to be great, but they don't want to sow a seed and they don't want to invest in their own life. They don't even want to pay $30 registration fee. But I think, well, you want the word, you want great speakers. But how am I supposed to bring in these speakers? And I know people saying, "Oh, she's getting off on a tangent," but I'm telling you, these are the things that those of us as business owners, as nonprofits, as individuals who are trying to go forward and do what we're called to do, whether it's spiritual or it's just natural in business, we're trying to provide the best, top quality service. And people need to learn to invest in themselves. So when I want to go to a conference, I'm going to one in October. I'm already looking to pay for a ticket. I'm going to get an early bird ticket or a VIP ticket because I want to get in the door and I don't want to sit in the back.
Mm-hmm.
Invest in yourself and stop wanting to nickel and dime the person who's putting on the event.
But in with you saying that, I am definitely a true believer in people truly pay for what they want. Um, I have noticed that people will cut a few meals here, do this or that or the other in order to truly get what they want. And so it's a point that you made, though. Oftentimes, people aren't always willing to invest in themselves,
Mhm.
to grow, to learn, to do different things. They do want that given free, but they're willing to, oh, I will not do this in order to go buy this new handbag that is coming out. So I think it is an important part and an important thing to know that, yes, ministry comes at a cost, and it comes at a cost
Yes.
to everybody. And it is only by sowing seeds and by helping that it continues to grow and to flourish and get to the point to where it needs to be. But thank you for giving us all that detail about, the challenges you may have faced, the fear, the doubt, the adversity. My next question for you is, you have women and sometimes men that you talk to that, you're an inspiration to a lot of people. Um, what would you say for someone, let's even use myself as an example, wanting to go after a dream? Like, what is the best advice that you've maybe received from a mentor? And what advice would you give?
So after doing all this for years, and me, I have a coach.
Mm-hmm.
I've invested, and I want to go back and say that I have invested in myself to
Mm-hmm.
learn. I have materials, but I've invested in a coach to teach me to do better about how to market, how to do all this. So I don't want people to say I'm just saying it. I want
Mm-hmm.
people to know I've done it. I've taken my own savings and invest. And learning this type of things, what I have learned is one, um, I'm not going to call her name because she's very well known, and I don't want to. I don't know if I'm infringing on anything, but one of the things that I have learned is make sure your dream is your dream.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
because you think about it, Ray Miller is my daughter, and we've said it a couple times here, but I can't expect her to follow me or do what I want. And you see so many people. Oh, I think here you're doing this, or sometimes we look at other people, we want to emulate them. We don't even want to emulate them. That's the wrong word. We want to imitate them. So we latch on to them because emulate is like you have some of the characteristics and you want to be like that. But we get this thing of we want to imitate them. We want their dream. We adopt their dream as ours, and we wonder why we don't have any success because
Mm-hmm.
that's not what you're really good. You think you have a passion because maybe you've watched them, but you don't have to mimic them. And maybe that's not your dream. So I would say, first of all, make sure it's a dream that God has given you. Make sure it really is your dream. Make sure it's not something that someone's trying to force you to do. If it's not
Mm-hmm.
in you, then just say, I don't want to do that. I'm not good at that. That's not what I'm passionate about. That's not what I'm called at. You know, you and I have had things I'm like, girl, don't you want you like, mom?
No,
No,
I don't.
no.
That's not what
But
I
I
want to do.
love that I raised you to have a mind of your own
Mm-hmm.
in a respectful way, you know, but that you can have that conversation. And I know we're raising it, you know, your babies, you're raising your children to say that. Sometimes we say, you know, little one there, got to watch how she says it, but no. So one, make sure your dream is yours.
Mm-hmm.
Two, count up the cost. Um,
Ooh,
Scripture talks about that, you know,
that's a
here
big
you have
phrase.
the dream and this is what you want to do. So when I started VLS coaching, and one, I counted the cost to invest in myself to get a coach. I went to different trainings. Count the cost. What is it going to cost for me? Look, do some research. Research. Research what it's going to cost to start the business. What does it look like? Do market research, do research about your population, who you want to serve. So do some research about what it is you're trying to do. Is it marketable? Is it sustainable? How do you do that whole platform? Whatever it is, whatever you're looking at doing, do some research. Why do I say that? Because they're going to be ebbs and flows. Everything's not going to skyrocket.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are overnight success. Some people you're going to slow crawl.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, don't ever give up. If it's your dream, don't ever give up because two people may start on the same path
Mm-hmm.
and one may run and they may get ticket sales. We'll just call it sales, clients. But one may get sale. Sale. Does that mean this person is less qualified or this person's dream means less? No, it just means that's way it's going. So don't ever give up on your dream. The worst thing you could do is throw it away and don't do it. That's the only failure is throwing it away, forgetting it. And if you have put your dream on the shelf, take it back down, dust it off. It's never too late. I put a lot of things on hold in my life while
Mm-hmm.
I was raising my kids. I put on going back to college while I was raising my babies and seeing you guys through school. And I worked full time. But guess what? I have several degrees now. See them on the back of the wall, on the back of the wall behind you. You can see them
Mm-hmm.
on the back of the wall. Why? Because I dusted that dream off and I decided I'm worth it. So don't ever give up on your dream because you're worth it. And
And
destiny is inside each and every one of us. No one here is without destiny. It's just a matter of what you do with it.
I think that is all valuable advice. Not ever giving up on yourself. But I love when you say count the cost. A lot of people don't think about that initially. They just want to go and think that it's easy because you're right. They want to imitate somebody, and it's not a true passion. Um, and they don't realize sometimes the hours, the long
Mhm.
nights, the tears, the frustrations. I mean, into creating a dream, and not saying that it's not your dream and you're not passionate about it, but it's not just a monetary cost, it's an
Mhm.
emotional cost, it's a physical cost. Um, I think about some of the things that I've wanted to do. And even you're at home writing, or sometimes you're extremely exhausted after getting off of work. And it's like, it makes me think though, as much time as I give and put into work, why can't I put that into myself and
Yeah.
bettering myself and advancing myself?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be easy, but it will be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
In the long run, it will definitely be worth it. And I like what you said about basically everyone's race is not the same. Everyone's, success is not the same. Um, but when I think about that, yes, some people may get instant success. Some people's success may come 5 years down the line. However, I am a true believer that everything happens within its time.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens within the right time. Your 5 years of going back and forth or trial and error, sometimes failure, may not have been for you. It may have been for the one coming behind you so that you can push them even further and say, keep going. I promise it will not always be easy, but it will be worth it.
Right.
You know, and thinking sometimes, again, the things that we go through are not always for us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so just listening to your advice of, hey, dusting off your dreams, keep it moving, keep pushing. I think that is valuable information that everybody should kind of just grasp onto. Um, and so I'm thinking about, goals and dreams. What type of growth of your business do you want to see, I would say, within the next 3 to 5 years? And I'm speaking more now towards, I guess,
The
VLS
coaching.
coaching
Mm-hmm.
and then even Tuesday Talk. You know, um, I will say I'm very proud of you for launching this because you are not one who um, like to do, podcast or be on camera and things like that. But I remember something from when I was younger, um, and somebody had prophesied to you. I don't remember who, what conference you might have been at, but that you will teach before thousands. That does not necessarily mean that, hey, I'm going to be on some big stage teaching before thousands in one setting, but you don't know who will hear your Tuesday Talk live, what nations it has gone to, and just to hear and see people that have across the country, not just domestic, but international, who have logged into this. You're teaching before nations, you're teaching before thousands.
Yes.
But what type of growth do you expect to see? Sorry, I got off on a tangent.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned that tangent because um, I do remember one time sitting because, you're right. When I started this, I was like, oh, my husband. This started because my husband was talking about, girl, you have the coaching business. You really need to make some videos. You need to put yourself out there. And I remember when I first started doing the Instagram pop-ups, it was like, oh, I can't do this. I can't talk on camera. I can't hold a camera. And it was so poor. And I still have a lot of growth to do with doing those. People do them. It's, I mean, amazing. And I haven't gotten there yet, but I just began just speaking my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was sitting and I said, okay, if I got to do this, Lord, is you and me. You got to show me how to do this. And he gave me Tuesday Talk Live. And I was like, well, what's that going to be about? He gave me the Tuesday because a lot of people aren't in Bible study. But even if they are, they can come back and watch it later. And he just began giving me guests. And it has gone weekly. And even now I'm saying, God, is it still supposed to be weekly? He's given me series. People I asked, they have just come on. And so the vision is, just as you just said, that this will go across borders, that it will go across countries. I would love to see one day that I have an interpreter on
Mm-hmm.
here interpreting in other languages, that people will come on and they will get, whether it's the word of God, whether it's whatever they need, whether it's mental health, whether it's physical health. We've had all kind of topics discussed on here: mental health, domestic violence. Someone was on here teaching about how you can, your SSI, SSDI, all these little important things that I never know who needs them. But
Mm-hmm.
what happens is God says, ask them, will they come on, and then talk to them. My own loctician talked about how do you care for natural hair, just all sorts of things. But her thing was knowing that whatever your passion is for your business. So I never know, but I would love to see that one day this is going to so many different countries. And right now we know I've had people in Istanbul, I've had
Mm-hmm.
people in Greece, and I've had people in Africa. watching. So I know it has gone across borders, and I am so grateful to the Lord for that. I would love to see one day where I have interpreters watching and interpreting this ministry, because that's what it is. It's a ministry to
It is.
others. And every person that hears it would hear it for themselves and hear, like in the upper room, they said that they were all speaking. And at the day of Pentecost, they all heard in their own tongue, and they were able to come to the Lord because of that. That's what I would love to see. And even with the coaching business, that it doesn't have to just be on stage, but my goal, I would love to go into the school systems. My heart is for young people. My heart is for the middle age and the high schoolers, that I can go and teach them, honey, you are somebody and
Mhm.
God loves you, and teach them how to grab hold to that. I think about the young girl who is being abused either at home or by a man or by a boyfriend. There's so much going on, that doesn't know who she is because she's lost. She doesn't know her identity. So what does she do? She's given away herself, or she's just, so I would love to go into the schools and start those school assemblies just to speak power, not just to them, but also to teachers and these individuals how to have boundaries. He'd
Mhm.
have some boundaries, and you wouldn't fall into that trap, or you wouldn't be the one doing that. Churches. Why we have pastors that are being arrested for sexual assault?
Mhm.
I'm calling it out. Calling it. We just had another one here, local. Just got
Mhm.
arrested. Why? Because we're not teaching the foundational truth and sticking to it. So my goal, Ray, is to keep teaching the foundational truth, to keep sticking to it, so that people will know who God is, how much He loves them, but that they can live a holy and righteous life before Him.
Thank you. I appreciate all of that information and feedback. And um, I think this goes to, I know young women are your passion, and I know, and I don't want to call it inserting yourself into their lives, but I know that they are your passion, and I know that a lot of young women actually draw to you. I've seen it throughout many years. You do have, I feel like, a motherly hen type of vibe going on here. um, but again, I do thank you for sharing all of that and thinking about people who may want to help your organizations, who may want to partner alongside of you, who may want to interact or come on, Tuesday Talk. How can they reach you? How can they contact you? How can they support you? Um, in any of these endeavors that you choose.
So if they want to financially support, they can sow a seed at the what's scrolling across the screen right now. If they
Okay.
want to contact me, let me put my email address up here. They can reach me either at either one of these emails. The coaching email is probably the best.
Okay.
Um, or they can inbox me on Facebook. Hold on, let me get this, because I probably can't type and talk at the same time. Um, but they can reach out to me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Either
Okay.
one. At Instagram, it's Vera Sadler 23. On Facebook, it's just my name, Vera Sadler, or it's Women of Life Ministries. You can find me either way. It's also, you can find Lift, Launch, and Lead program on Facebook. So we do have we have a page on Facebook that's dedicated. It's not scriptural or anything. It's just dedicated to providing uplifting information to individuals. So just uplifting posts. So you have Lift, Launch, and Lead on Facebook. You have Women of Life Ministries on Facebook, and you have just me. And you'll see a lot of these Tuesday talks on there. LinkedIn is under my name, Vera Sadler. Again, these posts. And I would love for people to subscribe to my YouTube channel. That gets the least amount of traffic, but I'm on YouTube as well. If you want to check out some of my messages, even when I was a pastor in New York, some of my old messages are there. I've always had a passion for preaching, teaching, but always giving. But if you're in need of coaching services, if you want to be a part of the Lift, Launch, and Lead program, reach out to me. If you want to sow a seed, it's at Vera, WLIF. You can Zelle it there. You can Cash App. However, you can Cash App to the phone number, or you can be a part of the Lift, Launch, and Lead. But reach out to me if you just need prayer.
That's
Inbox me at one of those places and I will pray for you, because nothing moves the heart of God more than our prayer.
Thank you. Thank you. And just to kind of wrap this up in this, me as your daughter, I just want to let you know how proud I am of you. Again,
Thank
I probably don't always say it. I always don't act like it, um, but I have definitely taken notice of you. And I remember growing up in school, and even I think it was this year, I was doing something with work, and it asked, like, who's the most influential person in your life? And, a lot of people, oh, they think of celebrities or they want to imitate other people, but it's like, you are. My mom is. And it's not to say that we don't have our issues, our mother daughter fights, because we are two very dominant people with our own mind. She has raised me to have a very independent, strong willed mind. But in the same notion, I can also say that um, my mother does lead a life of integrity. And I will say that she is the person who, kind of like a backbone, I can call upon whenever I need to. You know, again, we may not always agree on things, and I may not always be like, "Oh, mom, this, that, and the other." I know I'm kind of selfish of you when people want to ask to share you, but I am so proud of all of the things that you have done and that you haven't given up. From, yes, you did put your dreams on hold, but getting your degree the same time that I did, and then moving on forward to masters. I mean, just to think, again, you said legacy, to think of the legacy that you were leaving behind, and not even just for me, because I am an adult now, but for my kids. And I don't know if you mind me sharing this, but I think about my kids, and I think I was telling her this maybe a week or two ago when we were riding around together. I am so just like grateful for my parents. The fact that, she will pick my daughter up and spend time with her. I didn't have those type of things growing up with my grandparents. And so the fact that she makes time, some people don't, but to realize my grandma's going to come pick me up just to go get my nails done or my toes done or have a girl's day, or, you know, and she loves on my kids. We often laugh and say that my son, his grandma is his favorite person. And he always tells me, well, it's because she birthed you. Um, but I love that my kids love you that much. I love that they probably love you more than they love me, which is okay, because uh, I think about the love that I have for you. And, I just want you to know how truly proud I am of you and all the things that you have done. But the fact that you haven't given up and you keep pushing, you keep going, regardless if you're tired, if you're hurt, if you're worn down, if you're stressed, frustrated, you don't give up. So thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Well, I guess we've concluded another episode of Tuesday Talk Live. And I thank you for taking the time to allow people to get to know me,
Mhm.
because lots of times we're the ones doing the talking and asking the questions. And this episode came about because one of my other guests said, you need to let your guests get to know you. You need to let your audience get to know you. And I really did. I asked my daughter, would she do this for me? Would she mind? And she said, no, absolutely, I'll do it. So we just had to find a right Tuesday. And this was the absolute appropriate moment. It's a segue into a new series that I'm getting ready to do with someone else. We're getting ready to do a new series called Identity Crisis for the entire month of August. I pray everybody tunes in. I'm not sure what it's all going to entail, but I just believe that it's, again, going to be very influential. It's going to be impactful, and it's going to help everyone that listens. Again, this is Vera Sadler with VLS Coaching, Women of Life Ministries, and Ray Miller, who has been here to ask me all these wonderful questions. And we'll see you again on Tuesday Talk Live.